Welcome! I'm glad you're here. You're listening to Banjo Chat, where I bring in amazing banjo players and chat with them about their life, their music, their stories, their pitfalls, inspirations, and advice. So, join us on this journey into Banjo Chat. Hello, hello! Welcome to the Banjo Chat. I'm your host, Hillary Hawk. How you doing? How you doing out there? You know what? It's Wednesday, and here we are yet again, talking to each other. Well, I'm talking at you, but always having a good time, always enjoying it, always enjoying getting to connect in this way. Well, this past week was a busy one. I went up to my dad's in upstate New York, came back, played a show in Brooklyn, got back on Amtrak, saw my mom and grandma, brought this mandolin that I've been borrowing, and I played my first ever mandolin gig for the nice folks in her assisted living facility. I played a little Blue Moon in Kentucky. Hey, good looking, whiskey before breakfast. You know what? It's like the good stuff. If you can do that, I highly recommend. It always feels good to give back, you know? You feel like you make a little bit of difference, and that just feels really good. Speaking of giving back or trying to help, there's this current situation in Israel right now, and I'm going to be donating some money on behalf of the Banjo Chat to Doctors Without Borders, who have been doing work in Israel for the past 20 years. If you have the means to donate and you want to do something, go to doctorswithoutborders.org. They're doing the good work out there, and it is a way you can help, however small it feels, and seem like you can make a difference as well. Also, just a quick plug for the Ashokan Banjo Weekend coming up November 17th through 19th in Ashokan, New York. I've been talking about this lately. It's going to be Tony Trishka, myself, Cedric Watson, Joe Newberry, Scott Hopkins. It's going to be a really great time. If you're in New York, think about coming up. And I just also want to mention, because I don't want you to think there's a lag time, I'm going to be taking a couple weeks off of the podcast to prepare for the Banjo Weekend, because I want to have a live broadcast up there with just really awesome conversations with all those guys, and I'm looking forward to it, but I want to make sure I roll it out right, so I'll be working on that. So just no surprise when I take a couple weeks off, I hope. All right. Well, I am so excited to have my guest today. She is a finger-picking banjoist, originally from New Zealand and a founding member of the touring band Mile 12. Hey, they won the International Bluegrass Music Association's New Artist of the Year award in 2020. 2020, come on. What was going on in 2020? They won that Artist of the Year award. She also won the Steve Martin Banjo Prize, which is a huge honor. I'm sure you've heard of it. All this to be said, she is out there playing. She has been for a while. She is doing it. She's putting the work in. She's hitting stride after stride. I'm so proud to have her here. Welcome to the Banjo Chat, BB Bowness.
Thanks for having me, Hillary. It's a really cool podcast. I checked out a couple episodes and really dig what you're doing.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Thanks so much. Wondering, where are you living now? Are you still in Cambridge, Mass? With the internet these days, it's like you could be living anywhere.
I know. I think about that sometimes when I consider moving back to New Zealand. But no, I'm in Cambridge, Mass still, and loving it here. Just right in Inman Square, if people are familiar with Cambridge.
Nice, yeah.
It's my husband likes to say, it's not Boston, it's Cambridge.
Cambridge and Boston, I feel like those are two totally different things, you know?
I don't, and I've lived here for 10 years, and I'm like, it's Boston, I live in Boston, but, well, I understand. If you grew up here, it's very different,
Yeah, Cambridge is cooler, I think. That's
what he thinks.
Yeah. It's not really a hop and a skip, to get back to New Zealand. That's quite a trip. So, you have to kind of plan that ahead a bit,
Yeah, it really is. It's pretty tedious, actually.
How long of a flight is that?
The best way to do it is about 25 hours or so, and that's including the layover, because you can't go direct. So you fly to LA or San Francisco and then fly to Auckland.
Oh my gosh!
And then my parents live a good drive, like 5 hours south of Auckland, or another flight.
That is a lot longer than I thought you were going to say. I didn't realize you went that way across the United States.
Yeah, I know. It'd be easier to live in San Francisco or LA or somewhere,
Oh
that
my
coast because it'll be a lot
gosh.
closer.
Well, I'm not sure the last time you and your band passed by Brooklyn, but I tried to catch your show a couple years ago at the Atlantic in downtown Brooklyn. I think that's where you guys played. I was just pulling this from my memory, so I didn't look
Yeah,
it up.
that
Yeah.
sounds right. That was a cool venue. I think it didn't last though, right?
No, it's not there anymore, but I was playing a show at the exact same time and I couldn't see you guys, but no, I heard that was a great show.
Yeah, we love coming through there. I feel like our home venue there, or the one we have had the most success with, is Jalopy.
Ah, great. Yes.
Yeah,
That's a great
we've
place.
played there a few times. Yeah, I like that room. It feels kind of closest to like Club Passim, up here, which is our one of our favorite spots to play up in Boston.
Nice. Well, this is our banjo podcast here, so I have to ask you some banjo questions, and it's my favorite thing to do. What is what is the hardest thing about being a professional banjoist? I mean, for me, it's like learning material quickly. Like I think I'm doing too much like living here in Brooklyn, but usually someone wants me to learn something quickly and then I have to drop everything I'm doing and learn something for a gig. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you have anything like what's the hardest part of being a professional banjoist for you?
Yeah, I haven't had to do a ton of that kind of thing because the good fortune of being in the same band for almost a decade is like I know those tunes pretty well, and if we write something or we come up with a new song, it's not going to be a surprise to me. And I'll still work on it ahead of a tour, but it's like I don't have that same thing of like, hey, tomorrow, can you play a new song? No, I can't do that. But I know what you mean. Like on occasion, there'll be something pop up kind of last minute, and yeah, it's like you can do the best you can do, right? It's just like trying to remember the kickoffs for all the songs. Or I find that kind of hard if I have like a bluegrass standard gig, and there's a bunch of songs you're meant to be the person that kicks them off, and just remembering, they kind of all blend into one if you're not super familiar with them. So I've been really fortunate to play in like a local band up here with this great fiddle player, Laura Orsha.
Oh.
And she is just like, she grew up with bluegrass. Her dad plays, her grandma sang, and she's just kind of knows every song, it seems like. And so it's been fun to be on gigs, like local gigs with her, and she just makes sure she stands beside me on stage, and she can just like very quickly sing it to me again, like as a refresher. It's like if I can just hear the verse or even a few words of the verse, oh yeah, that one, okay, I got it now. But that's always hard, just like keeping those all straight. If somebody else kicks off the song, no problem, usually. But
No, I totally hear that. Yeah, it's like you can't know everything all the time, but it's like you do what you can in the moment.
yeah, but kind of cool to be, if you think about it, if you're getting a lot of pickup gigs, like sounds like you are, and people are like asking you to cram last minute, learn this song, learn that song. You're getting paid to learn music, which is great. And you would think after doing it all the time for years, you're going to get quicker at it, which is always something I try to do just without getting paid for. I'm sitting there and trying to learn a new tune just for fun, thinking, oh, one day I'll be quicker at this.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Like, I'm totally jealous, like that you've played with the same band for 10 years. Like, I feel like I'm totally stressed out, like living in Brooklyn, like trying to like meet the needs of every gig that comes in and like just keep the hustle going. It's a lot. It really tires you out, and yeah, I think I've gotten faster at it, but like I'm looking at like what you do with Mile 12, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing, and the focus and the energy you get to put in that one band, and like undoubtedly like Mile 12, like right off the bat, you guys are like you guys were a great band, talented group of people, and I feel like you witnessed success early on. So I was wondering, do you have any like driving force that keeps you focused, like with the band or just with in general, like just yourself? Like how do you stay focused with like that project or like with what you want to do?
Great question. I mean, bands kind of live their own lives, I feel like, so that's a little bit harder to kind of control. Although I would say each of us at varying points throughout the band have kind of taken that initiative and been like, okay, I see, the emails aren't being answered. Like, I'm going to get on and hustle today. I'm going to be that person. And it's definitely not me every day, but probably at the moment I'm, one of the older members of the band. There's only 2 original members left now, and so it's like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling that. Yeah, if anything's gonna happen, it probably should be me or the other older member of the band. But yeah, I think in the earlier days of the band, it was like all of us were kind of unattached and younger and didn't have wives or husbands yet, and didn't have pets to take care of, and so it was a little bit easier to just put everything into it. And I do feel like pre-pandemic touring had a different feel to it, to me at least. It felt just like the before times, and you could kind of just, it was almost like a crazy, I don't know, siblinghood of frantic, putting it, all 5 of us back then, and I think that's why we had early success, was we were just crazy about it. Like, we would be our own booking agents, and I remember one time on like a long drive, David sent like 300 emails to DJs just like in the car. David and Bronwyn especially, they were crazy and ambitious, and all of that fueled, the energy that you kind of need to have like a band survive on the road. So yeah, that's not really happening these days, but I do think all of that comes, that's kind of a separate thing from being just like myself and like, what do I want to keep, achieving with music, and what am I trying to get better at? I think I just take it one day at a time. I'm not too crazy about like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. I view it more as like a long-term lifestyle, and I'm okay with the fact that sometimes I'm just not going to want to play the banjo. I'm not going to want to learn music. I've been doing it for 20 years now, and that's okay. Like, I teach a lot, so putting my energy into, making sure my students are motivated is, it takes some of that motivation away from me. But I think, that's, it's okay. I've had a lot of time to sit and practice the banjo. Not to say that I don't still practice. I'm still pretty into it. But there'll be, there'll be weeks or months where I'm really into it, and then kind of take a holiday.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Like, I love that. I love what you're saying about that. And, having the drive to push the band like that, but keeping it separate from yourself. I mean, it's hard to distinguish sometimes, but yeah. How do you stretch? What are your favorite stretches after holding a resonator banjo for a couple hours?
Like physical stretches,
yes,
like with your body?
Yes. Like, how do you deal with the...
I don't do anything.
Really?
Yeah, I do nothing. Well, in the pandemic, I got into yoga with Tim, which is, he's like one of the least annoying yoga people on YouTube, and he's really quite good. Like, he's funny. He's just like a guy with, I think, does he have a dog? I can't remember now. It's been a while since I was doing that, but I think I was doing that more. I was just trying to stay sane back then. Like, it wasn't about stretching because I was playing the banjo, because I wasn't on tour. Yeah. But I did get into that for a bit. I have had some issues with back stuff. I think the most important thing to like not dying while you're playing a resonator banjo is doing planks.
There it is.
You got to get your core strong, because I've had back issues in the past. The slip disc and stuff. When I was like actually a lot younger, which is not a good sign. Like when I was like 17 in high school, I had a slip disc and was pretty down with the back stuff. But I think it's more just posture. Like, I did a little Alexander technique that I think that helped. Yeah. Banjos are just heavy. I think sitting is the way to go.
Yeah. It's like, it gets my legs. It's crazy. It's not even my back sometimes. It's like if I'm doing a gig, and like especially like a brunch gig or a long 3-hour gig, it's my legs that hurt. And I get home and I'm like, oh, I'm so tired, just from standing.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not even the back.
You're not allowed to sit? The brunch gigs, you think that would be a prime opportunity for sitting?
I don't know. People don't sit on these brunch gigs. I'm gonna have to start that. I'm gonna have to start that trend.
Baylor would sit.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think his bluegrass hop thing has been a standing thing, but a lot of his gigs, he's sitting down. Like him and Abigail. I just thought that's
because he's an older man now. I didn't realize that. Maybe he always did that.
I think if you're playing like in the crazy stuff he's playing, classical music or whatever, then yeah. I think sometimes it's like there are certain tunes you just can't actually play standing. The angle is different, you know. I
True,
think when
true. I feel
Noam
that.
Pikelny, like a few years ago, he had a solo show that he took on tour. And he said,
Yeah.
he was like, there was one tune he was saying he just couldn't play standing up. Like, it was really, really hard to even get it, the stretch, if he was sitting. So he just didn't put it in the set because he did a standing gig. So I
Oh
imagine
my
if you're,
gosh, I could.
yeah, playing complicated stuff like that, it's like it's just a lot better if you're sitting down.
I can imagine that. Like some of those fingerings are so. It's like, how do you even get there? Like with standing. Yeah. No, I could see that. That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
You should say
Um,
to your brunch people, like, hey guys, I'm playing all this really cool stuff now, and it's really complicated, and it can only be done sitting.
yeah, it can only be done sitting unless you pay me $50 more per hour. Just kidding, everybody. Just kidding, guys. So this is a banjo thing here. I gotta ask, what picks are you using?
Good question. Let me see. I have a couple different pairs, but these ones are Yates 8. And they're great.
Oh, nice.
They're, do you know them?
Wait, no, what are they called again?
Yates picks. And they're the Yates 8 model, which is like they're kind of a new version of the Ovalates,
Ah.
which are my favorite, but they're expensive. So these ones are, I think, like $50 for a pair, which is still kind of expensive. But the Ovalates, you know, are hard to find, and they're, you know, kind of collector's items at this point. So you got to have some friend or buddy or who knows a buddy and to get them. And they usually cost like at least $100 or maybe more.
Oh my gosh. Are you wearing a Bluechip thumb pick right
Yeah,
now?
Bluechip. I've been on the Bluechip train for a while. I find it hard. I think the plastic ones probably sound better, but I find it hard to get one that fits great and feels good on my thumb. And I hate it when they get scratchy, and I'm too lazy to buy that ultra fine sandpaper that you're supposed to get to kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to tell everybody at home, we're on Zoom right now, but we were both wearing our thumb pick when I asked about picks. We're both wearing our picks. So that's pretty funny. No, I use the Golden Gate. I still do the plastic thumb pick, and I get it real tight so my thumb turns blue. I just do that, and then it does get scratchy at a certain point, and I end up just changing it out, you know.
That
But
makes sense.
I don't know. I just do. I guess because it's like replaceable and it's kind of cheap. I just do that. And then, what kind of strings are you using?
The strings I do GHS. I actually have an endorsement, so I get them a little cheaper, and they're the Studio JD Crow set.
Ah, you're using the Studio JD Crow. I just put those on my banjo, and that's interesting because it's a totally different sound than what I was using. I always use the GHS or D-ring, and I put the JD Crow on, and I was like, wow, this is a totally different sound. It is different. I can see why you might choose those.
Yeah, I just do everything. My buddy Gabe Hirschfeld, he lives down the road, and he's a
Yeah.
real absolute gear nut and an amazing player as well. But like he's just tried on every pair of strings ever, and he just tells me, "BB, you got to get these. These are the best." And so I just do whatever he tells me.
You just
Except for the
use
blue
it.
chip thumb pick, he actually doesn't. He's like, "When are you going to stop using that blue chip?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Probably never."
Hey, you gotta do what you do. You gotta like what you like. That's what makes you different, and it makes you you. I haven't gotten into the blue chip, but I don't know. Maybe I will someday. You gotta change it up sometimes too.
Yeah.
And then what is your favorite banjo of choice? Like, do you have like one banjo you use all the time? Do you have like multiple banjos? Who's your favorite banjo?
Yeah, so like I've only ever really owned two banjos. Well, I had one early on. It's an Ibanez from the 1970s, and that was a pretty good banjo. And it's actually floating around in some hands of another young banjo player in New Zealand, which is kind of fun.
Oh, that's
And then
cool.
from that, I upgraded to Robin Smith banjo, Heartland banjo. Pretty early on. I got it when I was 15, I think, and I bought it just on eBay from this fella in Texas, just without playing it or anything, and I shipped it to New Zealand, at the beginning of high school, and I loved it, luckily, because it could have gone terrible. I didn't know anything about banjos. I didn't know whether to get a deering or a stelling, or I didn't really know. And I just saw this one on eBay and was like, oh, that'll do it. And that was my banjo for like a long time, 15 years or so. It was like my main touring banjo, my only banjo. And then 2 years ago, I was very fortunate to get an old Gibson pre-war flathead. So that now is
nice.
my new baby, and my Heartland is like my second. If something needed to be fixed up on this one, I would use the Heartland banjo. But so the new one is the new old one, I should say, is a 1927 RB3 with original neck, and the tone ring was actually originally wasn't a flathead tone ring. It was sent back to the factory in the 30s to get the new thing everyone loved, which was this tone ring that is now really valuable. And so the fingerboard of this neck has been replaced, but the neck is original. And that's about all I know about it, because I'm not really that well versed in banjos.
No, I think everybody at home mouth is watering probably right now, and mine is. That's an amazing banjo. I would love to see it, love to hear it. That's awesome. That's so cool. What a great banjo.
Yeah,
no, but I hear you. It's like that's the way we got banjos. I mean, like I ordered my banjo without playing it too. The same way. I ordered it and just got it. I got a Stelling Red Fox, from Janet Davis. I didn't play it, but I got lucky and it sounded great. And I play, I still play that banjo. It's still awesome.
Nice.
It's hard to get, and especially coming from New Zealand, I I don't know how many banjos you had floating around out there.
0. Yeah, it had to be shipped over from America.
Who do you remember first hearing in New Zealand and then made you think like that's what I want to do? Like, was it a pop artist? Growing up for me, I remember like I was already playing banjo, but I heard Alison Krauss in Union Station because she had a couple crossover like pop hits on. It was like country, and then she had some pop hits, Alison Krauss, and at around the same time, the Dixie Chicks were like kind of had a couple pop hits. And I heard those too. And I was like, this is absolutely what I want to do. Like I didn't know the banjo could make those sounds. And for me, that was like a huge influence on like moving forward with this as a career. Like I was like, oh, there's potential here. Like I didn't have that thought, but like I think in my mind it really motivated me to like want to do it. Did you have anything like that in New Zealand?
No, I actually didn't hear the banjo recorded. A friend of my parents like owned a banjo, and so played the banjo for me at his house, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Can you teach me the banjo? And he was also a guitar player, and he said, oh no, well, the guitar is a little easier, so let's start with that. I don't know why he said that necessarily, but anyway, I started with the guitar, and it just made me want to learn the banjo even more, because he said it was tricky, and I'm a stubborn little 12-year-old. And so I eventually just like only practiced the banjo part of the lesson, and eventually he was like, all right, we'll just do banjo lessons. He seemed to like it. And so I learned from him for a few years. And he had a couple CDs, but it was like my first, I think, CD that he borrowed me was like the Dueling Banjos compilation thing. And he also, pretty early on, we got a copy of Drive by Bela. And so that was cool. And I remember seeing, I remember being really amazed seeing those, those videos of like Tony Rice and Bela and the Acoustic All-Stars at like, maybe it's Merlefest or something. They're like those iconic videos. We got like a VHS somehow with those performances on it. I think it was that, because it was before YouTube was around. But anyway, so seeing like Bela was a real like motivator for me. I think eventually I did hear the Dixie Chicks and stuff too, and was pretty into it. But but it wasn't like any one. It was like seeing a person play the banjo that kind of got me initially inspired.
Yeah, like Bela is really like he is like our role model crossover hero in the banjo world. Like I feel like he really brought it out and made banjo cool again after it really wasn't cool for a little while. Like I feel like Bela like brought it to like a new place, and he's a household name. I mean, most people, I think, know who Bela Fleck is in the world, even if they're not, music lovers,
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so I feel like Bela really changed the game and yeah, it made banjo cool. So is there like a different perception of banjo in New Zealand? Like, does it seem to have like a Southern culture Americana feel? Like, or did you just kind of come to it in your own kind of bubble, and then when you got to the United States, you learned more about it? Or like, what was the vibe of the banjo for you in New Zealand? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't think there's just hardly, especially back then, and I haven't lived there for 10 years, so I'm definitely out of the loop now. But back then, when I was living there, which was now like 20 years ago, nobody played the banjo. There was just like, it was just total luck that a friend of my parents in this small town in Martin, New Zealand, which has 5,000 people, played any instrument. I mean, there's like probably only a few musicians in that whole town, and the fact that one of them was a banjo player when there were only like 4 or 5 banjo players in the entire country is like crazy. It was just like a crazy accident. Happy accident? I don't know. Happy, but then realizing, oh, okay, like there's not actually any banjo players in New Zealand except for like this one guy who lives 6 hours north and like a few people in the South Island. Like, what am I going to do now? My banjo teacher sadly passed away, so I had to be like, okay, well, how am I going to learn the banjo? And this was really, there was YouTube, but it was like, dial up where you like have to let the video kind of like play or load for 3 hours and then come back and now you can watch it. Or it wasn't like, there wasn't great tutorials or anything back then. So I planned a trip over with my mother when I was 16 or 15. And we just like hit all the spots, all the bluegrass festivals and camps and stuff. And that was how I kind of continued my banjo education, was like flying to America and we went to the Rocky Grass camp and Nash camp and a camp in Texas, I think it was called Camp Bluegrass, and like Telluride Bluegrass Festival. So that was kind of like, I just got, everyone was so nice and, happy to like give me all their DVDs if they made them, like Bill Evans to give me a whole stack of like DVDs and tab books, and Tony Trischka, Alan Monday. They just gave me like, I'm pretty sure they gave me all their handouts that they'd ever made. And so I went back to New Zealand with just like a huge stack of tablature, and I was like, all right, I keep going from here, So yeah, that was like, there's not like, I think the perception of banjo in New Zealand is similar to how it is here, but just less known. And I think probably the perception is still mostly like the Beverly Hillbillies and dueling banjos rather than what's come since that. Like, I don't think they're that hip to like who Molly Tuttle is or Billy Strings yet, but I could be wrong because, like I say, I'm like judging it on when I was living there, which was kind of a while ago now.
Yeah, that's really inspiring, and like your appreciation for the banjo is really inspiring and exciting, and how you really just pursued it like that. That's really, really awesome and unique. It's cool. Well, I wanted to take a listen. I mean, I could just keep talking to you. It's like time flies by, and I just could keep going because I have unending questions. But I did want to take a listen to the newest album from Mile 12. It's called Close Enough to Hear. I was thinking we could listen to a tune that you wrote on it called Hoppin' Around Telluride. How does that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, so we'll take a listen and then we can talk about it a little bit. So here we go. All right, that was Hopping Around Telluride, and That is such a cool tune. I could just keep listening to that. It like definitely has a sound of like being on the road. Like I could tell that you guys have played together a lot, and it sounds like you've been playing for audiences. Like you kind of know the sound you wanted to go for with this. Yeah. Do you have anything like? Yeah. Do you have anything to say about this tune?
Not a ton. I wrote it actually. I was thinking about my mother and thinking about that trip I was just telling you about, like coming over. Because actually on the first like 4 or 5 days, it was like a 9-week trip, and within the first 4 or 5 days, my mom broke her leg, and which was a bummer because I was too young to drive the rental car. And so I was like, well, I guess we turn around and like fly back to New Zealand. And she was like, nah, babes, we can do it. Like Kiwi can-do attitude, or just being crazy. I don't know. It's probably like illegal to drive with a broken leg. But anyway, it was an automatic car, and we just drove. We continued. She would hop to the motel room at night, and her leg would all be like swollen up from driving us, across the state that day. And then I'd unload the car and then load her back in the next day, and off we go. And so the first festival we went to here was Telluride Bluegrass Festival. We were camping, and it was like our first ever American bluegrass festival. And she had a freshly broken leg, like she just like 2 days on crutches. And so we were meeting people, and people were just like, "What are you guys doing? Like, you're from where? Like, why is your mother got a broken leg? Like, why are you still here?" And so the whole thing was just kind of a crazy experience, and meeting all these people that I still see now, and they say, "Oh, how's your mother? How's her leg?" And I'm like, "Yeah, she's good." It was 10 years ago, but yeah. So that's the hopping part, hopping around Telluride. I was just like writing that tune, thinking about her.
Like, not just that she was hopping around, but like you guys were hopping around together, but like she was actually hopping.
Yeah. Just like the level of commitment she had, and I don't think I would have kept playing the banjo or been able to move here. It's not that easy to become a citizen of this fine country. You need pretty cool parents. Like my parents are both kind of handy people. Like my dad's a builder and my mom's a artist / they also ran a fish and chip shop for 20 years. And so they were just happy that I finished high school. Like they didn't have huge expectations, I guess, or like, oh, you need to go become a lawyer or a doctor or something. It was like the fact that I went to school for music, and the fact that music was jazz banjo didn't bother them at all. And they were, they've always just been supportive of whatever I've wanted to do in life. So I think, writing that tune was the least I could do to pay back my very sweet and supportive and crazy mother.
Ah, that's so nice. I love that so much. Oh my gosh. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to compare that to this other tune on the album. It's called Waiting. And actually kind of just want to listen to, without getting too nerdy, I kind of want to listen to the banjo solo part of it. So we're just going to listen to this part of Waiting. And here we go.
They're always 20 steps ahead of me. I cannot match their pace. Someone told me I should be here, but I don't want to run this race.
I love the way that you're soloing on this. You're kind of combining melodic and single string and some other techniques in there. Yeah, I just love it. It sounds great. And that's a tune by Ella Jordan, who also plays fiddle in the band, and it's just such like a great modern sounding bluegrass tune. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pleased with how that one turned out. And Ella's singing is awesome. She really brought a whole lot to the new sound of the band, having her in the harmonies and having her sing lead on that one is awesome.
Yeah, it sounds great, her singing lead on that. I love it. Do you have any favorite sounds or ideas that you like to make on the banjo? For example, I'm a stronger melodic style player than single string, and so I like to make like long melodic washes of sound, or kind of blending the open strings. Do you have any like favorite sounds or go-to things that you like to do on the banjo?
I don't know. That's a good question. I always just think about what I wish I could do, not like
Yeah, true
what
that.
I already enjoy doing. Well, I do love, I feel like in the last few years I've been trying to be more conscious about doing more rolling ideas, and so taking like a triad and kind of, yeah, just trying to like make music with a rolling idea, which I think creates a lot of cool sounds that I've, neglected to explore to their full potential. I definitely default to single string mostly when I'm improvising. I think probably as a result of like going to school for jazz, that's like you're basically just being a guitar on the banjo. But I love that side of hearing people phrasing um, with a little space, and I feel like single string kind of lets you do that, whereas Scruggs and melodic are like, you're kind of just like you're going at it, and you want to keep the flow going. Um, but yeah, it's like tricky on a folk song, and this whole album was kind of like singer songwriter music. It's like, well, I could do anything, I could do really sparse solos with single string, or I could do like full on bluegrass banjo. And it was kind of, I guess I just want, felt like whatever was in my head in that moment on that day for that song came out.
Yeah, I can really tell that. It sounds really cool. It sounds like you really just followed your heart. Like on all the solos, I feel like on all the tunes on this album, I feel like you really kind of connected with something that's like a little greater than just following the traditional style of banjo. Which made me think about like how do you envision like improvising? Like do you like how do you not just practice it, but like how do you yeah, envision your style of improvising? Do you like to stick close to the melody? Do you like to like, slowly escape from the melody? Like how do you think about it?
I think it depends who you're playing with a lot of the time. So if I'm playing with someone that's really adventurous and crazy and out there, I'll become more crazy and out there and probably like be more willing to be on the edge. But if I'm playing with people that are like I just did some gigs with this guy Rick Farris, who's an amazing singer, really bluegrass kind of guy. I think he won the New Artist like last year maybe, or a year before. Anyway, he's an awesome singer, and for that I felt like I was like just kind of sticking to like the planned out kind of banjo kickoffs or banjo solos. Like I wasn't going really crazy because it didn't fit that like style of how they were playing the bluegrass. So then, like, recently, one of our favorite people to pick with, and I'm so glad he moved back to Boston, Stash Weislauch. You probably know him. And, he's just so creative and crazy and does whatever he wants, and he'll leave a huge amount of space if he wants to, or he'll play really, out of the box harmonic stuff. And that's like, if I'm playing with him, and you heard me playing taking a solo after a Stash solo, it's going to sound very different from if I take a solo after a Mile 12 show or someone else. So I feel like who I am as an improviser just depends on what the music is and who else is playing the music with me.
Yeah, no, yeah, that does sound like a really cool experience, like playing with him and then going back and forth between Mile 12. Yeah, that's awesome. Are you always learning on the banjo? Are you still learning on the banjo?
Yeah. I try to, and that's why I was saying earlier, I'm not, I don't put a fire all the time under myself to like keep everything going, because I do want to keep the passion of learning for a long, long time. Like I want to be a 60-year-old and be like, oh, I've just been working on this piece of music and I'm so inspired about it. And I'm only 33 now, or 30, I'm 32 or 33, somewhere in there. And so I got a long time to go, and I want to just enjoy the process of still learning. So yeah, definitely, I'm always kind of working on new things.
Awesome.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah, I guess like for everyone out there that's listening, I was wondering. Because a lot of people are like learning banjo, or are artists themselves that are listening. how do you keep from comparing yourself to other artists? You know, how do you stay grounded to yourself and yeah.
Well, get off social media. That's a terrible thing. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think you just have to make sure everything else in your life is going, you know, and check in with yourself and make sure you're, you know, healthy and happy, and can you pay your rent. And I think all those things make a big difference into how, you know, how miserable you're going to be, and comparing yourself to other people or whatever. If you're really living a grounded life in a great community with friends and family and stuff, that, you know, it's something everyone deals with, but it's like, is it going to take over your life, or is it just going to be like an occasional thought of like, wow, that person sounds really good. Why don't I sound that good? But using it to kind of just, you know, I always try to, if I have a jam and I'm playing with people that are really great and I wish I could do some of the things they were doing, I try to just use that as fuel for motivation to like get it in the practice room tomorrow. And, you know, I think I'm pretty good at keeping a pretty positive mindset about that. Yeah. I feel like everyone's better. And, you know, especially being a banjo player, that's one of the things I get a lot of is like when I play with fiddle players or mandolin players or even guitar players, mostly fiddle and mandolin, because those instruments make so much more sense in the banjo that they can do these crazy things, and then they can do them in a different key just by moving up 2 strings or whatever. Mm-hmm. We don't have that luxury on the banjo. So I feel like not so much with other banjo players is, I don't know, I just don't always get to pick with other banjo players. But I get to pick with a lot of great fiddle players and mandolin players, and I go, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get even close to the cool stuff they're able to play on their instruments, but I just have to do what I can do, you know?
Yeah, it's like, they're like, let's go to the key of E, and let's play this fiddle tune in the key of E. I'm like, awesome, that's a great idea. And I'm like, you know, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? But you're right, like mandolin, it's like they just can put, it's like, it's a little easier to put it anywhere. I guess fiddle too, anywhere on the instrument. And banjo, yeah, it's a whole nother layer because of the way we have to do the rolls and get around the strings and the tuning. Like, yeah, it's a whole different thing.
But don't worry, those fiddle players can never play Foggy Mountain Breakdown as good as we can.
There you go. That's it. That's right. Yeah, and I think it's like really great, like as banjo players, because we don't often get to play together. You know, like, you know, playing like banjo players playing together is like a kind of a novelty sometimes, and we don't get to do it much. So I think it's really good to be like happy and happy for each banjo player that we run into, because, you know, it's like, it's exciting to see what you can do with it and be happy for the person that's kind of discovering that. It's kind of like an open road a little bit, the banjo.
Yeah,
you know?
I think there's so few banjo players too that it's really like, you know, you get to a point where you're just like, well, they're good and they're good and they're good and they just all sound different. You know, it's kind of,
they all sound different.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's room for everyone for sure. It's not a real saturated field.
I know, right? Oh man. Well, I've asked you a lot of questions. You know, is there anything that you want to say about your life? I don't know. I feel like I've asked you a bunch of questions. Is there anything that you want to say that I didn't really cover?
I think I can't even remember what we talked about now, but I feel like you asked so the big questions, you know, what strings, what banjo, what do you practice, you know. Yeah, no, this is great.
Listen, if I don't ask those questions, I get an email that said, like, why didn't you ask about the gear? And I'm like, all right, I'll ask about the gear.
Totally.
It's like, some people want to know, you know.
We need to know, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right, that's the Banjo Chat. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you have any questions or comments, email us at thebanjochatpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at banjochat. Goodbye. This episode was engineered, mixed, and mastered by myself. If you'd like to support the Banjo Chat podcast, all you got to do is help it along with a little like, a little subscribe, and a little review, and that'll help boost it a little bit so I can keep making these for you. Thanks so much.